Going ahead, I would like to welcome Jesse Paul, Chief Executive Officer, Marketing Guru, and author, who will be talking about role of being human in marketing. Over to you, ma'am.
Hello and good afternoon, everybody. And thanks so much for this opportunity. And I want to talk about something that's very close to my heart. And it's something of a holy grail for marketers overall. We want to do human centric marketers. And the reason for that is pretty simple. We marketers are really nice humans. And we, as individuals, care for other humans and our customers, right? So if we were faced as an individual with a particular situation, we know that we're going to respond in a really nice and human way. Now, we expect that our brands also would be able to respond in a similarly human way. And that really has been a lot of effort. So when we do brand blueprint, we write down the values of the organization, and then we look at ways in which we can talk about those values and make sure that everybody lives by that. The only problem with this approach and why it falls apart every now and then is, let me give you an example for that. So for example, Indigo Airlines was in the news recently because they denied boarding to a child with special needs. And the official doing it, I don't think he meant to be a bad human. I think he genuinely was concerned about the safety when it started. And then he kind of got stuck in his rule book and couldn't move away from his rule book, even though, there was this whole other audience around him saying, try and be human, try and be human. And that, I think, is the challenge that we marketers face, in that you've put together a brand book, but then that gets cast in stone, and we are just not able to take decisions which are not in the rule book. So what is required is actually then two things. One is that we have to define what do we mean by human behavior. And you've got to be as thorough as possible when we're defining what is it that we think is human. And also remember that different cultures have different interpretations of what is a human. So we have to interpret it as per our brand, as well as per the country or the culture in which we operate. So what is a human is step one, as thorough as possible. And then in that, you can say that if faced with this situation, this is how you would respond. And I'll give you another very simple example, is that when a customer comes for a return, and maybe your process says that you should have the tag with you or the receipt with you. What is your rule for a person who comes without that? It's an exception, and they are counting on you as a human to trust them. And it's your choice as a brand to say, yes, I will accept, no questions asked. Or, maybe they can show me the SMS they got from the credit card on which they paid. So you could start putting down those kind of processes even for the exception. And then you can act as a human when someone comes in and says, hey, I forgot my slip, but I really want to return the product and it's in great condition, it's in the box, no issues. And the brand comes across as a very human brand because someone behind it actually sat down and wrote a rule book which conformed with the brand's values of trusting the customer. During COVID, ID Foods, which does idli, dosa, batters, etc., they had a really cool experiment, which was the trust shop, where they would just leave products in apartment buildings because they weren't allowed inside. And you could take whatever you wanted and you just paid, left the money or sent them the money through GPay or whatever. Their pilferage was so low because when you trust customers, they trust you back. It's just that you need to put a process in place. Now, people then ask, so what happens when I don't have a process? So when something like, say, the Indigo situation happens, what do I do? If it's not in the rule book, how do I teach my frontline staff not to destroy the brand with bad behavior, shall we say? So then that's where the culture of the brand steps in, and they really need to understand that this is how the company would want me to act, or at least these are the people whom I should consult, because I'm not at all sure what the company would want me to do in this situation. So I have an escalation and an exception to follow when I don't know what the brand is telling me to do as a human being. So just to recap, one is that we need to have a rule book for the brand, which is an operating policy. And then we need to train our employees on the culture that is expected. And the third part is that we need to have a means of escalation so that when I don't have an answer, I don't just stick to my rule book, but I have a place to go and ask. So that's the first part of being human. The second part of this, holy grail of personalization or humanization is personalization. I want to treat each of my customers as an individual. Now, I've been hearing this, like, I think this has been the holy grail ever since I started marketing some 25 years ago. And every year it was, we would have more data, more data, more data, and we would finally be able, like on the fly, to know that so-and-so was this person with this demographic and really treat them as a person. Now, any of you who has received, these emails or SMSs, which clearly get you wrong, like, so insurance, when you've already got insurance, car policy, when you've just renewed, or dear sir from your bank, when clearly you're a madam, any of you who have faced it know that this holy grail is still pretty far away, even in pretty simple situations like sir or madam. And again, the reason is that for various causes, privacy rules, database rules, whatever, we really don't have a full picture of our customers at any point in time. Also, customer situation changes pretty rapidly, and maybe our database is not updated with that. And we rely on algorithms maybe to see whether the name is, masculine, feminine, but then you come across names like Jesse, which could be male or female. So the algorithm fails as well. So this whole personalization holy grail is still pretty far away. And the actual disaster is when our attempt at humanization meets this lack of personalization. So now you're trying to apply incomplete information on how to be a human to incomplete information which may not even know the gender of the person you are talking to. So there, my suggestion really to marketers is that, look, this personalization, we all know that we're being marketed to by bots. I mean, we do it ourselves, so we know how it works. So let's just accept the truth that we've not succeeded with that. And let's not get too tied up saying that, the mail is going to be in my name and be correct. Let's try and just get the facts correct. And then when the engagement commences, how do I get that engagement right? So I don't necessarily need to know your name. I don't necessarily need to know your gender. But if you come in for a return without your bill, it is important for me to know that, yes, indeed, you are the person who bought this product from me. And I need to be able to verify that this product is mine. And then I need to be able to safely refund your money to you or give you a replacement. So the personalization that the customer is hoping for is only these three. They really don't care if you know their name. They really don't care if you know their gender. They really don't care if you know their color. In this particular context, all that is required is these little pieces of info, which is, am I a customer or not? How much did I pay? Where did I buy? And I just need to verify. So, and there is research also that shows that accuracy of old-fashioned demographics is better or much better actually than whatever we're getting through third-party data and trying to guess and so on. So maybe go back a step and think about what information do we have that is relevant to the context at hand. And you might say, okay, but I know so much. I know that her favorite color is pink. I know she buys shirts all the time. I know that she's a size 36. I really want to use that information. Absolutely. And that is relevant when in the purchase mode. And it helps to show the right options to this person when they come in to purchase. But you don't need to try and personalize a refund mail because in that context, it doesn't help. And a classic example of that is like on Twitter, people complaining, saying, look, my flight did not take off. I want a refund. And it's all very correct. It's, hi, Miss Paul, but could you DM me your PNR? And it's like, come on, you know my name. You can clearly see my number. Why do you need to know everything else? I mean, you should know that, right? So there, my expectation is not that you know my name, but I really want you to be able to use my name and get the PNR and find me a solution. So all the frills that the brands are putting together in terms of a social media team that is so personalized and replying to you by name and thank you, and we will look into it, it's a complete waste because what I want is only two things. One, I want you to treat me as a human and trust me. So when I'm tweeting that I am at this airport and the flight isn't taking off, first assume that I'm accurately stating my problem. Don't assume that I have to prove to you that I'm in this airport and my flight did not take off. And the second piece is the personalization information that I want you to know is just this little bit that I have this PNR and my flight ain't taking off and I want you to do something about it. That's all I really want you to do. Now, when we can't fulfill these two basic requirements, everything else that we are trying to do from a brand perspective doesn't go down well because the customer says, you were mean to me, you did not treat me as a human. And secondly, despite my buying a ticket from you or buying stuff from you, you don't even know who I am because maybe your mail made a mistake with a Mr. and a Miss. And this happens all the time to me. WhatsApp group. I join a new WhatsApp group. My DP clearly shows who I am. It's a closed group, 250 people, and yet somebody says, so hello, sir. And you're like, what? And then you realize that this was a template. He just says hello, sir, to everybody. You shouldn't be offended. He meant it as a sign of respect, and he's very sorry afterwards. But the fact is that once you make that initial error, it is super hard to recover. And that's why I think before we dream of true personalization and running human to human or brand to human conversations, we really need to get the building blocks of our act together. And that is first to define, as per our book, who is a human. Second, to put a process in place to implement our definition of a human. Third, get a culture going where if the rule book is silent, then people know how to behave like a human to your customers. And the fourth part is rather than worry about individual personalization, focus on broad demographic personalization and then very transaction level individualization. So if someone has bought from you and you actually have the data, use the transactional data, but try not to fill it up with guesswork about, gender or name or things like that. Just stick with the facts. I think if more brands use this approach, we could all have more pleasant interactions with brands because, when you go online, the fact is that most of it seems really mean and, conflict. Brands fighting it out on social media with customers is a very regular feature. And I think that's because they still expect us as marketers to be human, and we all are. So, my request to everybody here who's listening in is, you're a good person. How would you get your brand to reflect the goodness of your soul by putting in place a brand book and a process that translates the inner human that you are into every transaction of your brand? That's all I had to say. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, feel free to ping me where else but on social media, or just let the organizations know, and I'm sure they'll connect you up with me. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing all that knowledge with us.